and entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Creatures of Habit podcast. As you guys know, if you've followed along on my journey, over the last 7 months, I have dove headfirst into the world of CrossFit. I've become I guess I would call myself a CrossFitter at this point. I'm.
Oh, let's not call yourself that.
All right. Ben says don't call myself that, but I wish I would have found CrossFit. I mean, I knew about CrossFit, but I hadn't walked into a CrossFit gym more than 1 or 2 times over the last 15 years since I've been a competitive athlete. And I've found CrossFit about 7 months ago because we found out at Creatures of Habit that something like 30 to 40% of the people that use Meal One on a regular basis also train CrossFit. And that was a very eye-opening finding for me as the founder and CEO of a company. And so I said, well, I've got to immerse myself into that community. And lo and behold, I have fallen in love with the sport. I've got a guest on the show today that if you know anything about CrossFit, he is a legend. He has been in the game for a very long time. He has coached some of the world's most fittest people, period. And he is, if not the leading coach, top 5 leading coaches ever to exist in the sport of CrossFit. His name is Ben Bergeron. First and foremost, the dude is a dad and a husband, like me, loving family man, been in a relationship with his wife for a long time, similar to me. He is, again, coach to some of the fittest humans on earth. He is a best-selling author. He is a podcast host. He is a former Ironman. I think he holds every single CrossFit certificate a human being can hold. He's an awesome dude, and I am super fired up to be able to talk to him today about habits, but also some other things that I've been kicking around. I want answers for. Ben, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. It's like to be here, man.
So I am very excited to have you here. You know, on the Creatures of Habit podcast, we really talk about the habits, rituals, and routines of successful people. And that doesn't mean successful monetarily necessarily. That means just successful. I equate success to a feeling, right? Do you feel successful, happy, or not? And what I've learned over my trajectory over the years is the decisions that I make consistently on a ideally daily basis really do paint a good picture of what success looks like for me on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to ask you about your habits, your rituals, and your routines. But I want to kind of kick it off by giving you an opportunity to just tell us who you are, a little bit about your journey, and about how you got to where you are today. And then I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, cool. So I love that you start off with this kind of prerequisite of like how we, what's success and how we define success. And I think that's one of the things that's kind of steered my career for a long time. And the way I would kind of like loosely define that is the peace of mind that you're on the right path. That to me is success. Is like, if you have maybe even just like peace of mind, like I think that's what we're all, whether we like to say it or not, that's really what we're all searching for. And people kind of chase white rabbits that they might not understand that that's actually what and they end up, in the rat race and they don't have peace of mind. But here's where I kind of started with that is I went to school for business and then afterwards did what most business people do. I went into banking and thought that was going to be the corporate ladder I was going to climb. And I got really shooken awake when 9/11 happened. And when that happened, I quit my job and moved out to Wyoming to try to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. Cause I didn't want that hamster wheel. I didn't want to be in a cubicle. I wanted to have some form of impact. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, but kind of debated the ideas of, joining the military, becoming a firefighter because of all the heroic acts that were going on that time. And then eventually, I don't want to say settled, but figured out that I want to be a trainer, a personal trainer, and did that for a couple of years, then found CrossFit, as you mentioned, that kind of spun up into opening an affiliate, having some success early on in the sport of CrossFit at the CrossFit Games, trained a few of the champions, the male champion, the female champion, the team champion, age group, male and female champions. And that gave a bit of a platform for me in the early on. And since that time have continued to own and run and my affiliate, take classes there every day. Love it. And have opened up a auxiliary business called CompTrain, which is this online app where we can help people become the fittest, best, most resilient forms of themselves. And it's for CrossFit athletes for sure, but it's for athletes in any walk of life that want some really high-end training. It's not just it's not get off the couch. It's not your first 5K. It's challenging real training. And that's where my kind of efforts are being put right now.
I love that you talk about this sort of high-end caliber of training through CompTrain. That's different from CrossFit New England, potentially. Because what I've learned over the last 7 months, especially after just going down to train with a couple of the pro athletes, right now, we work with a really amazing dude named Christian Harris.
Yep, no, he's a great guy.
He's such a good dude, and he works with us at Creatures of Habit. And I just went to go train with him and shoot some content at his affiliate in Long Island. And working out with him is couldn't be more different than working out at my CrossFit affiliate. It could not be more different. There was 5 pieces that we did in the session, and in my CrossFit affiliate, it's maybe 2, right? It's a strength piece and then some sort of a conditioning piece of some sort, or a fitness piece. It couldn't have been more different, and it was really, really eye-opening for me to see that like there are different levels to this sport, right? Like walking into a CrossFit gym is awesome, and you're going to get exposure to a lot of new movements. For me, it was amazing to be an athlete for so long, and then having exposure to stuff that I've never touched before. It was like super awesome and challenging. But then seeing what the high level of the sport looks like, because I went after training with Christian, I got in the car and drove 4 hours to go train with Kelsey Keel the next day. And that was another, like, holy smokes. Like this is a very, very different experience. So can you just talk to us a little bit about that, like the sport of CrossFit as an athlete, and then the human being that wants to step into a CrossFit gym?
Yeah. So CrossFit's sort of like a niche within a niche, right? So there's fitness in its totality. Then there's all these different camps. There's bodybuilding, there's ultra running, there's yoga, and there's CrossFit. So there's that. Then inside of CrossFit, and CrossFit's an amazing thing. If you're going to affiliate, it's phenomenal. You're gonna get incredible shape, have incredible workouts. There's a real, I don't want to say secret sauce to it, but it's this thing that has a really potent effect. And it really does create really high levels of, we'll call it fitness, call it work capacity, whatever it might be. It changes people in a really cool way. But there certainly is a multitude of levels to it. There is the regular CrossFit, which anybody, and I mean that anybody, can walk into from an ability perspective, maybe not from a mindset perspective, because you're going to be humbled. It's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. You're going to have to learn a lot. As you said, it's like super exciting to learn a lot of new movements. That's not everyone. Not everyone gets excited to learn things. So if you're willing to kind of be humbled and work hard, it's for you. And it doesn't matter if you're limited by strength, or you don't have good range of motion, you can't squat, or an injury or something else. So there's that aspect. Then there's this other level, and CrossFit breaks it down really well. Once you get into the sport of CrossFit, there's people that compete in the open. So it's not just people that want to go to an affiliate. It's people that can actually throw their hat in the ring and compete in an online competition against all of the professionals every year. It's 3 weeks in February every year. We just finished it. And it's one of the biggest participatory events in the world. There's hundreds of thousands of people on the leaderboard. Super cool to see where you stack up against the pros and your buddies and everybody else. From there, they take the top 10% And those top 10% move on to what's called the quarterfinals. And the level goes up in terms of the weights and the movements. And instead of having to do one workout once a week for 3 weeks, now you do 5 workouts in a 3-day period. And the level of competition is much, much higher. From there, they take the top, essentially 40 guys and 40 girls from all these different regions. So the United States is broken up in East and West, and they take the 40 guys and 40 girls from the Eastern United States. And those people go to an in real life competition. Ours is in Orlando. The one on the West side is in California. And from there, they take the top, 5 or 10 to go on to the CrossFit Games. And they do that from the United States, from Europe, from the Pacific, Asia and Australia, and all of those things. For someone like Christian, who's a professional athlete in the sport, that's what he's trying to do, is crack into that elite level, games level. And when someone like yourself who's fit, and goes up in a workout with someone like that, it's so crazy to see the different capacities, because you can run a marathon, you can rock climb, you can do 15 pull-ups, you can back squat 350 pounds. So you're like, by all other measures, you're one of the fittest guys in the neighborhood. But like anything else, these guys are professionals, and you might be really good at throwing a spiral. You might be really good at catching a football. But if you were to go with Odell Beckham and Tom Brady on the field and see what they were doing, you'd be like, holy crap. Like, yeah, I can shoot free throws and I can hit 50% of them. But if I was to go with Tatum and kind of like shoot hoops with him and play him one-on-one, they'd be like, holy smokes. And I think that's what people start to recognize when they get, which is really cool about our sport, is how accessible the pros are, because they train in these gyms. If you go to a CrossFit gym, you'll see them there. They're not in, some walled off space like other professional athletes are. And you get to see the capacities that these guys have. And you start to recognize where you actually are on that spectrum. It's incredibly humbling and inspiring. It's a cool thing to be a part of. And as for me as a coach, to continue to try to like push the envelope of what those levels are is, that's what the sport is growing so fast. These guys get fitter and fitter and fitter every single year. It's really cool.
I loved training with those two. Like I really did. It was just for the first time, stepping into that level.
What'd you guys do when you were there? What 5 pieces, but what was one of the things?
One of the things was, we did 40 GHDs into 12 clean and presses into 4 legless rope climbs. And then we did 30 GHDs into 9.
The descending order.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the GH been 40, 30, 20, 10 probably.
Yeah. And then we did, like, the first piece that we did was 40 cals on the bike erg into 20 cals onto the ski erg, 60 cals on the bike erg, 20 cals on the ski erg, 80 cals on the bike erg, 20 cals on the ski erg, and then back down. Then we did, 300-meter farmers carries into bent over rows for 4 rounds, with 88 pound kettlebell. I mean, it was just like, it was like one after the next. And I, like, for me, for whatever reason, I think I prefer that to just a strong, like a 20-minute Metcon. Like I really do kind of like that stuff. So I'm just scratching the surface here in the sport. Like I don't know, it's so funny when we talked a couple of months ago, I kind of told you what I was trying to do. And I loved what you said to me. You were like, yo, dude, you're 42. You are going to get smoked in your age group, being that you're so new to the sport. Commit to the next 2.5 years and see where you stack up at the bottom of the next age group. And that's what I'm going to do. That's basically what I'm going to do. I want to ask you a few questions about patience. Patience is something that I think is in anything ambitious people try or attempt to do. I do believe that patience is what separates the successful ones from the non-successful ones. That's my opinion, right? Like if you're able to wait it out, you have a better shot at the person that really just doesn't have the patience. How important is patience when it comes to competitive athletes?
Well, that's funny. It's I think it's how you define patience, because patience could, if we define it as like commitment without seeing results, I guess would be a way to say it. Because if you're seeing results, it's not patience, it's like exciting, right? If you're trying to clean and jerk 300 pounds, you walk in the door at 135, and the next time you're doing it, it's 155, and then 185, then 205. That doesn't require a lot of patience. But similar is your approach is, the conversation was, you're 42. I know you want to like throw your hat in the ring and compete this year. I think that a better approach might be to have some patience and really build a strong foundation and see where you are at the young part of the next age group, which is 45. Where I'm getting at is, if you're too patient, you're also not going to get anywhere. You have to have this kind of relentless attitude where I'm going to do this thing today, but almost defer, or, we're so results driven. Like once you come into the hard charger community, whether it's talking to, the people you just named, like before, the successful people, the CEOs, the people that are seemingly living their lives on their terms, certainly the elite athletes I work with, they need both. They need a level of patience to know that this might not happen today. It's going to take months to get to where we want to be, maybe a year or two, depending on where they're coming into the system. But I don't want somebody that's just going to sit back and defer to letting it all just happen as well. You want somebody that's going to help write their own future and feel like they have a level of control over that. And that's where that fine line resides. Because if they go too hard in on any one of those things, patience can lead to complacency. And once you're complacent, like, you're sitting on the sidelines. But if you go so hard as like, I need it now, that leads to frustration, stress, and anxiety. And you'll end up shortchanging yourself in the long run. So you need it, but not by itself in totality. It's got to be a piece of the puzzle. It's not the totality of it.
I think that's a great explanation for it, because I kind of correlate it to my experience as an entrepreneur. Right. I've been an entrepreneur for the last...
An entrepreneur is a great example of that. You need both of those things.
Yeah. Because I just launched a new business. This is my third business that I've launched. The first two have been pretty successful. The third one is also trending in a positive way. However, it is really, really hard. It is really, really hard. And as an entrepreneur, specifically in the world that I'm in right now, which is direct to consumer product, you need to raise money. It's just, that's part of the game, right? Like you got to raise money. And if you play it smart, you can manage cash flow. So you don't have to raise a ton of money all the time, but you always are going to need to have cash. You're always going to need to raise money for the most part. And raising money is really, really hard. It's just really, really hard. It's one of the hardest things to do. You get told no so much more than you get told yes. And I've kind of created this like mantra where I walk into these pitch meetings, or I walk into these meetings and I say, man, I'm hoping for a no. I'm hoping for a no, because a no is just going to get me so much closer to the next yes, And so I feel like with sport, I kind of feel the same way, where I'm just like, yes, I am the guy that wants to go in and like put 315 pounds over my head, having never done it before. And I need people around me to be like, slow down, dude. Slow down, slow down.
I think it's really cool. I think a big part of that is, for high level athletics, and probably any athletics, and probably life, it's the management of expectations, right? If you think to yourself, like, I want to be able to put 315 pounds above my head in 6 months, and you're like 6 months, and you get, within a month of that, and you're like, wow, this isn't going to happen. That to me is the thing. What does that do to you? Does that send you in a downward spiral of like, maybe this isn't for me? Maybe like, I'm not this type of athlete. Maybe I'm not going to ever get there. That's the conversation we need to have. Because you having the expectation of wanting to clean 315 pounds, cool, awesome, love it. You wanting to have an undefeated season, I get it, love it, want it. You wanting to be able to raise $10 million so that you can get to your next whatever, love it, think that's amazing, great. But what happens when that doesn't come to fruition the way that you expected it? That's the big part of that we want to be able to, that's a conversation we need to have.
So that leads me right into the next question that I think you have a very, very strong perspective on, which is mental toughness and mental fortitude, and how that could potentially be the delineation or the separator from the best of the good to the greats. What is that? What is mental fortitude? How does that play into your style of coaching elite athletes and just in your personal life in general?
Yeah. The first thing that we need to address when we have that conversation of what is mental toughness, what is mental fortitude, is an understanding of what we're talking about. Because we have to be talking about the same thing. So if I'm working with an athlete, we need to say, here's what it is and here's what it isn't. Because most athletes have a misconception of what mental toughness and fortitude looks like and how it shows up. Most athletes think of it as gritting their teeth and doing the extra rep, doing the extra wind sprint that no one else at practice is doing, rolling their ankle and staying in the game. Those things are not mental toughness. That's physical toughness. That's you dealing with the burning lungs, you dealing with the pain in your ankle. That's a physical toughness thing. So if we want to talk about what does mental fortitude look like, what does mental toughness look like, we need to understand what that is. It's a little bit simpler than people want to think it is. And it looks a lot more like focus than it does grit or tenacity. It's not being distracted by anything. That's what mental toughness is. So when the game is on the line and the so-called, in air quotes, pressure goes up, how do you respond? When you're trying to pitch your company to the 11th person in a row that says no, what happens to your mindset? That's a mental thing. That's nothing to do with physicality. There's nothing physical about that. When you're in one of those pitch meetings and you see the person's body language kind of like, shrink, that you're like, oh, this is the thing. I know they're not gonna be interested. What goes through your mind? Does your effort go down? There's really just two things that you have ultimate control over. We like to think we have a lot of control over a lot of things, right? We really, like your success, we want to think that we have control over that. Ultimately, the only two things that we have control over, this is where you need to dive your energy and focus into, is your effort and attitude. That's it. Like everything else is off the table. So what mental toughness is, do you continue to give all of your efforts with the most competitive attitude you can bring to the table, regardless, ... regardless of any circumstance? Halftime down by 45 points. Like, what's your competitive attitude going back into the second half? Someone says something really crappy about you in social media. Does that affect your next training session? That's mental toughness. And when you start to compound these things, the difference between somebody that has it and doesn't is as important as any physical trait that someone could have. And here's the reason why, is because if you don't have this capacity to continue to focus regardless of what's going on around you, and once you have eyesight on this, you see it everywhere when people don't have it. It's all over the place. in a CrossFit gym, somebody, they hear the workout and they go, oh my God, this is going to, well, boom, right there. You're saying this is going to suck because of what the workout is. You don't have the ability to give your best effort and attention towards this workout because of what someone just said to you.
Can I just stop there for 1 second? Because I think it's important. So that's a great example. So for the person listening here who says that often, oh God, this is going to suck. How would you give them a piece of advice on how to reframe or rewire that way of thinking about a potential workout that looks really, really tough?
Yeah. This is what happens is people go, you got to reframe it. You got to reframe it. You got to reframe it. Well, how in the world can you reframe it if you don't have the awareness that this is actually going on? Step one is you have to have the awareness that this is going on inside your head. You have there's two voices. Think of it as like, there's two yous. There's self one and self two. Self one is the long-term planning guy. He's the guy that's like, we're going to have a 6-pack this summer. We're going to eat salads. We're going to go for a 1-mile run every day.
The New Year's resolution guy.
We're going to be creatures of habit. We're going to be successful. We're going to start a new business. We're going to meditate and sauna and do cold showers. We're going to do all that stuff, right? Self two is the one that goes, yeah, but right now that cookie looks really good. We'll start that tomorrow. And all we have to do, the idea behind like, how do we give that person is start to recognize when self two is coming into the conversation. Self one doesn't want you to go, this workout's going to suck. This is going to, oh my gosh, I wish that. You got to recognize when that other guy is popping its ugly head up, and don't judge yourself for it. Everybody's going to do it. We're going to do it. But what we do is we go like, we don't even want to like have the conversation about that one. No, like I'm mentally tough. I'm good. Like just recognize it's going to be there. And when you start to recognize it's there, then you're ready for step two, which is the reframing thing. We got to understand when it's there, because if we want to be mentally tougher, you need to do reps against resistance. Makes sense, right? If we want to get physically tougher, you need to do reps against resistance. That's all fitness is. It doesn't matter if you're doing wall balls, throwing a 20-pound ball, resistance. Whether you're rowing on a machine, pulling on that thing, resistance. Doing bench press with 225, resistance. Even running, you're running against the limited air coming into your lungs, resistance, and gravity, resistance. Like you need that type of, in order to improve your work capacity, your functionality as a human being, you have to encounter resistance and do reps against it. Well, here's the thing. When you hear that workout and your voice wants to go, oh, this is going to suck, you go, oh, there it is. This is the resistance. This is it. This is what Ben was talking about. This is, and where you go is time to do the work. This is the time to try to reframe this. I used to not, if you don't understand that this is the time, you're never getting in the gym and facing the resistance. If you go, this workout's going to suck. Oh my God, ... I can't believe that guy just freaking cut me off in traffic. Like recognize that voice wants to come in there and say that. That's not productive. That's not going to move you towards your goals. You know, you're late for a meeting. The light turns yellow. You plan on going through the light and the guy in front of you stops. You're like, ah! You should want to yell at that dude. Go, there's that voice one wanting to yell at that dude. Can I just like reframe this? And then here's the thing from there. There is 6 different dozen ways you can reframe things. Is this going to matter in 5 years? If not, let's not give it 5 minutes right now. Never whine, never complain, never make excuses. Like I'm going to turn my have tos into get tos. Can I bring some perspective to this present moment? This is like just the toolbox, like what works for you. It does, the idea though is first we have to become aware when it's happening. When it happens, recognize you're walking into the mental gym. And can you resist the temptation? Don't judge it. Just resist the temptation to give more meaning and more ammunition to self one. And what ends up happening is self-one is that annoying toddler that's living in your head. Just going, this is going to suck, daddy. I don't want to do this. Like, and what happens when a toddler is having a tantrum? Every single parent in the world knows this. If a toddler is having a tantrum, there is only one way I know of to get them to calm down. And that's to not feed into their energy. No matter, like, calm down, little Johnny, calm down. Johnny, calm down. Johnny, I want you to calm down. Like, never in the history of calm downs has anyone ever calmed down from being told to calm down. You're feeding into that. The way you get Johnny to calm down is you ignore him. Let him have his little tantrum. So when self-one wants to go, this workout sucks. Like, I don't like, there you go, mind. There you go, mind, doing your thing. Self-one, look at you. Look at how you do that thing. It's the same thing. Like, you plan on having a really clean diet this weekend. Next thing you know, somebody shows up with a thing of, donuts that you're never going to get again because they're from the local shop. And like, you guys got to try this. Like, well, when that planning mind that planned on like, intermittent fasting or staying with the salads or whatever it was, goes like, and all of a sudden flips to self-one and goes, ooh, yeah, but maybe I won't get those. You go, there you go, mind, doing your thing. I don't need to feed into that conversation. I'm just going to let it do its thing and run its course. When you do that, just like you have this nice, calm, still lake of the mind, right? The mind is this calm, still piece of water. Well, no water stays calm forever. Every now and then there's going to be a leaf or a twig that falls into it. When that happens, the best thing to do is let it fall and let the ripples just settle. What you don't want to do is jump in there and try to remove every single leak. You're just going to cause more ripples. Let it settle, let it still. Don't assign extra meaning or judge yourself for having these thoughts that aren't in line with your long-term goals. It's okay to have them, but then let them chill.
Once you become, because obviously you just walked us through that. And what you did there was you basically said, potentially anybody can work towards this mindset, work towards this place of first being self-aware enough to understand when that ego voice is talking and trying to talk you into to quitting, right? Being like, you don't really need it right now. So being self-aware. And then once you're self-aware and you you're able to actually be conscious of this two different voices in your head, the one that you actually want, the person that you want to be, and the one that you really, that's trying to pull you back from that wanting place. Then you can begin to start either allowing that voice to just sort of fade away or reframing. I read your books and I read your athletes' books as well. And something that I think I loved most about like Katrina's stuff was every time, and you mentioned this, she also is very aware of it, that she loved the hardest of the hard. Like she was like, I like, actually the thing that I know takes me a step above is that like when these hard things are coming my way, where everybody else, even the best of the best, are gonna they're gonna be a little bit nervous about this intense thing. I want to eat it for breakfast. Like I can't wait to do it. That mindset is really, it's hard to understand. It's hard to understand, right? Like the hardest things in the world, you just cannot wait to do.
Yeah, it's hard to understand until you have an understanding of what causes change. These scientists want to create utopia. So they went in the desert and they built this bubble and they created essentially a Garden of Eden, like the perfect temperature, the perfect humidity, the perfect amount of rainfall for this ecosystem just to thrive. And after a short while, the trees just started falling over. They just started dying. And they're like, what is going on? Like, we set this up perfectly. What they realized was without the hardship of the real world, there was nothing for the trees to resist against. There was no wind for them to lean against. So their roots and the foundation weren't there and they just toppled over. We need resistance. We need it, like, to grow. We need it. If we're looking for, which Katrin is, looking to be the best in the world at something, she's never going to get there just by like, I'm there already. That makes no sense. Like, no one gets there without like, I know I need to like do a massive amount of work to get there. Michael Phelps, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, it doesn't matter. Like they all understand that there's so much work to go into there. Well, if you have to do so much work, why would you not want the work that's going to cause the most change? And the work that causes the most change is the hardest work. It's when you do the work and it's not the temperature you want. It's when you do the work and your training partners are actually beating you. Now you get to work against that mindset of like, well, am I good enough? That's awesome to go up against. If you're beating all your sparring partners every day and wiping the floor with them, what happens when you actually get in the ring and that person's better than you and you're losing the first 3 rounds? You've never faced that before. And it's the same thing when you bring that mentality into a competition and you know that you're more ready than anyone else to face the highest levels of adversity. Give me the extra cold. Give me the extra hot. Make it longer. Make it heavier, because you recognize that the more daunting it is for everyone else, if you go in with that attitude, again, it's effort and attitude, you realize that other people are going to crack at other levels that you won't. So if you can maintain control over the things that you have control over and let everything, literally, I mean, at the highest level, this is you literally let go of everything else. Everything else washes away. So, you know, the year that Katrin repeated as champion, there's such a great example of this when they, at the CrossFit Games, for people that aren't familiar, you don't know what you're going to compete in. Like, and that's 100% true. So on day one, on the night before the opening of the CrossFit Games, the head of the event gathers all of the athletes together and says, we're going to announce workout 1. And everyone's really excited. What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do tomorrow? He goes, we're going to announce it at 3 a.m. tomorrow. We need you to have your ID and a bag packed. And they're like, what? And like, okay, so they don't know what's going to happen. So the next morning they wake up, they go there and they go, get on a bus. And they're like, okay, what's going on? They get on a bus, they drive to the airport, they get on a plane, fly up to Northern California where there's mountains, and they have them to do this crazy, crazy test of fitness, running through the mountains in the dust and the heat and lifting insane amounts of weights and running with sandbags and awesome, cool, amazing stuff. Well, the athletes that weren't prepared for adversity started to crumble on day 1. Katrin, like, that's like fuel to her fire. Like, she loved it. On the flight back, they get flight troubles. The flight is, so everyone's like, I just want to get to bed. I just want to like rest. I want to like, the flight's delayed. And when that happens, more athletes start to crumble and crack because they're like, oh my God, we're getting no sleep. Then they announce while they're delayed, they announce 7 a.m. be at the beach. More athletes crumble. They're like, what about our sleep? Some athletes start to like, should we petition a boycott? Should we say like, no, if we just don't show up at the beach, they can't run the events? And Katrin's just like, what can I control? She found a corner and took a nap, slept. So while everyone else has this levels of anxiety and stress, focusing on the unknowns and the uncontrollables, Katrin has started her recovery process and is chill as a cucumber.
You know, an example of this for me personally that was one of the most like glaring, eye-opening moments where I began to understand that one of the only things that I can control, and it definitely is aligned with what you said, but one of the only things I really can control is my response. Right. Yeah. My response to what's happening around me. I know that I have very little control over everything. Right. I wake up at 4:45 in the morning to be able to control some piece of my life. Right. Yeah. When no one else is around, because no one else wants to be up at 4:45 in the morning. But realistically, once a single person or living organism steps into my periphery, I kind of lose all control. And the only thing that I really can control is my response. And I trained for years in Muay Thai kickboxing, and that's a really humbling sport as well. It's a brutal sport. It's a lot of intense training, and you're also getting kicked in the face, and it hurts. All right. That's where I really learned about adversity and overcoming adversity in a short period of time. You know, I've come over some other adversities in my life, but like, to be a real competitor, you have to be able to like face adversity on a regular basis, right? Like exactly what you're talking about. And I remember early on, I was getting punched in the face, and I'm a short guy. So like trying to get close to somebody who's taller than me, I have to be willing to take a number of punches to the face, because they're just going to do that, right? They're going to jab me. They're not going to crush me every time, but they're going to try to keep me away. And so I couldn't stand it. I hated it. I used to get so angry. And my coach, after a sparring session, would take me aside and be like, yo, dude, you lost way before you hit the mat, like way before. You have to understand this. You lost so much earlier than you actually lost, that it was a joke, and you continue to do that. You need to be able to control the response. If you get popped in the face and then you try to haymake and open your right side up because you want to hit that guy back like an idiot, he's going to pop you again because he has leverage over you. And that is when I began to realize that my response is so much more important, really, to my success than actually the actions that I take necessarily. Like, how am I responding to the things that are coming towards me? What am I doing? Do I need to take action? Or do I surround myself with enough people that are actually that are going to do the work that I don't need to necessarily do all the time? I think it's so important that control piece is clear to the person listening to the podcast, right? Like we have such little control. I know I've had you for a while. I do want to quickly just get into some habits, because I think it's the Creatures of Habit podcast. And I don't know necessarily if you have a regimented, structured morning routine, but if you do have a morning routine that you can share with us, I think it would be awesome to hear what it looks like.
Oh man, you're speaking my love language, actually. I believe that we are creatures of habit. We're the sum of our habits. Actually, I'll back that up. I don't think we're the sum of our habits. I think our habits have a huge impact on who we become. We are the sum of our attention. That's what we actually do. So you can go through habitual experiences, but if you're not focusing on them, they're not going to pan out. And this is where I think a lot of people miss. It's kind of like, we do family dinner every night. Okay, like you do family dinner every night, that's cool. That's a ritual. That's a habit. But if you're doing that, but your attention is actually on your cell phone underneath the screen, it's where you're the sum of our attention. That's all it is what you focus on over your lifetime is where we end up. So it's the combination of habits and attention together. So do I have a morning routine? I do. I get up usually around 5:30, sometimes 6. First thing I do is read. Then I journal about what I read. I do a 10 to 20 minute yin yoga, which is just like stretching. And then I'll do a breath work session into a meditation. From there, I go to the gym and I do a CrossFit workout, 7:30 class. And then that's kind of like, that takes me to 8:30. And at 8:30, I'll do a little bit of extra work. I'll jump into the CompTrain app, and that's basically what it's for. It's for people that want to do more than just the class. I'll do the extra pieces in there. That usually brings me to about 9 o'clock-ish, shower, and then start my day at work.
It sounds very, very similar to my morning routine. I've thrown a couple of extra little pieces in there because I really do. I have chronic Lyme disease, so infrared sauna and cold plunge and red light therapy have become a huge piece of my sort of keeping Lyme disease.
What have you seen as because we do sauna. I just don't do it regularly enough to call it a habit. My wife does. It's part of her morning routine. So I get the sauna one. What have you seen from and we've played with the cold stuff, but what have you seen from the red light? So
red light is the newest of all three of those modalities for me. I've been doing red light pretty much every single day for about 3 months. And I think what I feel most, what I have seen most about it is in my recovery, in terms of like my muscle recovery, my muscle soreness. And
what is the actual practice? What do you actually do?
I have a Juve red light therapy panel. Yep. And I do it before I do anything else. So I have a morning prayer practice, and then I do about 5 minutes of stretching, and then I go sit. I sit right in front of the red light therapy panel, and I do breath work in front of the red light therapy. So I'll sit and do breath work for 10 minutes. And every day I change red light in front of me, and then red light on my back. And I, you know, they're 10-minute sort of treatment sessions. If I'm feeling like I've been dealing with a shoulder thing, so some days I will do an additional 5 minutes just sitting with the red light on my shoulder. But I've noticed it most really in sort of just like a really good aid to my recovery. And since I've been doing CrossFit, you know, my body is really, it's acclimating to these new movements, right? So for the first time, I'm doing more shoulder. I've been feeling more shoulder movement in my fitness than ever before, right? Like there's, I argue to say that almost every single, outside of your traditional squat, deadlift, and bench press, which you still do in CrossFit. So anybody that's listening to this that thinks that CrossFit is only like Olympic lifting, you're wrong. Like this morning we did 5 sets for 1 rep max on the bench press, but the majority of the movements definitely incorporate way more shoulders than I'm used to, between any sort of bar work, gymnastics work, Olympic lifting work. So my shoulders are taking a bit of a beating. And I have been really trying to put an emphasis on shoulder recovery. So, you know, I will do like the red light therapy on my shoulders. And, you know, I can't tell you that I'm like, oh my God, this is a miracle. But I can say that anything that is clinically studied, like red light therapy. I mean, there's so much clinical study on red light therapy, way more than infrared sauna, way more than cold therapy. You know, I'm down to try. You know, I'm down to try.
Yeah.
So that is like, you know, like a piece of that. But I guess the question that I have, and this is a question that I want to share with the listener, what are your non-negotiables? There's like the ideal morning routine that you just laid out, and I've got mine, and man, when I can bang it out you know, I do it. But then there's like real life, right? Traveling, kids, whatever. Like, what are your non-negotiables?
It's the workout. I have to do the workout. And it's mostly because I've tried it the other way, where I've tried not working out, but doing the yoga, not working out and doing the yoga and the breath work and doing the journaling and doing the reading. But there's something about, and I think it's especially like the CrossFit aspect to it, because it's communal. There's like I have a very, very hard time starting my day having as a productive day without that piece. And because of that, I do it 6 to 7 days a week. It's just like, I feel like I need it.
You know, I have been in recovery now for a long time. I've been in recovery for almost 19 years.
Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. I have truly replaced my bad habits with great habits. And some people have even said to me, well, a lot of people actually, because of how I've taken the sports that I've done to competitive levels. Oh man, you're addicted to fitness. You're just, you know, you're just like replacing addictions. Yep. And I'm like, you bet your fucking ass, man. I am. I love it. I love it, man. And I would take being addicted to fitness and eating healthy all day long. So if anybody who's also listening and their friends or their family is giving them crap about like being committed to moving your body in a rigorous way, or eating, you know, the chicken and broccoli and beets over the burger and fries, you know, you can again react to that and allow it to impact and penetrate you, or you could let that jargon go on and smile and respond in a, hey, whatever floats your boat. Cool, man. I'm not passing judgment. You know, my sister used to just absolutely destroy me for years about how committed I was to my health. And she, you know, she would roll her eyes. We'd be at a family gathering, and I'd choose the healthier stuff, you know, and she would just be like, oh my God, can you please just have a slice of pizza? And I'd be like, I do it when I want, you know, it's like, and now I'm so grateful. My sister came to me in the beginning of the new year and she said, brother, I need your help. I want to change.
Amazing.
Change, you know, and it's been wonderful. My she's down 20 pounds since New Year's, and, you know,
so cool.
So yeah, it's what does your evening routine look like?
It's not as dialed in as the morning, because as you said, when other human beings are in the picture, it changes things. So I have a lot less control. I have 4 kids, 2 of which are 8 and 10 years old. So a lot of the evening is dictated by their schedules. So if they have sports, I'm going to their practices. Sometimes I just don't get over till 7:30. We're not home until 8:15. So there is no routine on those ones, other than we try really hard to get in bed at 8:30. So we kind of work backwards. We have a routine when it's stable. And that is that I'm home. I try to be home by 6 o'clock every single night. When I go home, there is no computer, there is no phone, there is no screens. I literally leave the computer at work. The phone goes in a drawer. So there's no distractions. I'm only going to have until 8 o'clock. I have 2 hours with those guys. So if I'm going to allow any of that time to be distracted, it's where attention goes, energy flows, where the sum of our attention, I want it to be there. So the routine when it goes well is 6 o'clock home, no technology, no screens. We're doing dinner by 6:30. That might take us till 7 or 7:15. We clean up until 7:30. At that time, recently I've been going out because it's nicer now in New England. I've been going outside and shooting hoops with the little guys. But in the winter months, we might do some homework or play Kids Against Humanity or Spot It or something game like that. We try really hard not to watch TV. Maybe once a week, if there's a sports game on, we'll put on the Bruins or the Celtics or the Patriots, but that we try to keep that to once a week. And then 7:45, we're upstairs starting the bedtime routine, which is PJ's teeth. On a good night, there's reading. That's not as frequent as I would like. And then I fall asleep with one of the kids. I alternate which ones I fall asleep with. And then I'm in my bed by 8:30.
Sounds very familiar, my friend. Very familiar. I know how, I mean, you basically just told my evening routine.
Yeah.
And no gadgets in the bed, no like cold mattress toppers or.
I have an 8 sleep. 8 sleep's pretty amazing. I take it back. 8 sleep's amazing. We have the gadgets. We have a humidifier. My wife does a mask. We have white noise.
Do you not do a mask?
I don't. Yeah,
Oh
I can't.
God.
I don't like it on my, and I move around a lot in my sleep.
I'm going to send you a mask. I'm going to send you a mask because I didn't like a mask, but I'm telling you right now, the mask that I use, it's like non-existent.
Cool.
And it's a game changer.
Cool. Well, the research is there. Masks are better for you. It's better to have a mask than not. But we even do like on nights that like maybe we're not falling asleep or we want to, we do a yoga nidra guided sleep. So we do all of that type of stuff as well.
I want to say one thing and then I got a final question and then we're out. There's a story that I was told a while ago, and I always think of this story when I have a conversation like this. And the story goes like this: an old grandfather sitting with a grandson around a fire, and the grandfather looks at his grandson and says, "Grandson, there's a war going on inside of all of us. There's a war going on inside, and this war is between 2 wolves. And one of the wolves represents optimism, positivity, motivation, inspiration, grit, and the get back up sort of mentality. And the other wolf represents negativity, doubt, fear, lack of confidence, insecurity. And they're at war every day. Every single day they're at war." And the grandson says to the grandfather, he goes, "Does the war ever end? Like, who wins the war?" And the grandfather looks at the grandson and says, "Well, the one who wins the war, the wolf that wins the war, is the one you feed most." And that to me sort of defines this idea, right? Where like there's these 2 voices at all times. We all have them. And for some of us, it's loud. They're louder than others at certain times in our life. And the one that actually ends up winning is the one we pay most attention to, right? And allow to penetrate. And I feel like that is such a great, everything that you've said basically says like where you place your attention is ultimately what the picture is going to look like. Last question for you, because I think it sort of defines your brand what does it mean to chase excellence?
I'd love to give you the elevator pitch for that, but it's the reason I'm not is because it's changed. It's evolved. And I'm glad it's evolved. It hasn't, then what are we doing? So if you had asked me that 6 or 7 years ago, it would have been about committing to the process of becoming excellent, great, a super high achiever. Today, it's a little bit different. Today, it still is those things, but it's those things with brought through a filter of in pursuit of what? We need to ask ourselves, what is the best use of our time? I think that's the best question we should always be asking ourselves. Where should I be spending my time? Where should I be putting my effort and my focus? And if we don't ask that question, to me, this is the chase. This is the pursuit. The quest that we are all on is, am I on the right quest? Knowing it's going to change and knowing that I probably can't answer that perfectly, and I'm going to deviate from it a little bit from here and every now and then. But it probably has something to do with fulfillment, and not pleasure, not happiness, but fulfillment. Because as we've talked about, you spending that time getting punched in the face that didn't make you happy. It wasn't a level of joy, but there might have been a level of fulfillment of like, I'm doing this meaningful thing. And to me, that's what the chase of excellence is all about, is, are we on the path to get to the place where hopefully we can be on our deathbed, looking back on our lives and going, I'm so glad that that's where I spent my time. I'm so glad that that's what I poured my energy into. And if we don't have that level of perspective in the present moment, instead of chasing that thing, I think it's really easy for us to get distracted by what society or your parents or the way you've grown up tells you to chase. And the chase of excellence is doing it on your terms, knowing that it's not about just right now, but through the prism and the perspective of you looking back on your life.
I love that answer. You know, I think I think about that often when I am with my kids, and I say, sometimes I'll catch myself being with my kids, but not really with my kids.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I'm like, is this right?
I came across something like just yesterday, which is really like, there's going to be a last time. How old are your kids?
5 and 8.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. There's going to be a last time that you pick up your kids. Like, you're not going to pick them up when they're 30 and hold them and walk around with them. You're not going to bring them upstairs when they've fallen asleep in the car. There's going to be a last time for that.
God, don't tell me that. That's
and
so
the
sad.
crazy thing, you don't know when that last time is. You're not going to go, this is the last time, I'm going to cherish this one. You won't know that. So like, that's what this is about, is can you cherish that? That's, to me, a life of excellence.
Ben, this is an awesome conversation. I know I kept you on longer than we had planned for, and I really appreciate you giving me your attention today. I really, really appreciate this one. Where can the audience follow along on your journey?
The best place is probably on CompTrain, actually. I think most people point to social. I don't want people to be on social. I just don't think that that's a place for where we should have our attention. So a place to follow along with the journey and what I'm sharing is through our digital platform. It's called CompTrain. It's in the App Store. You can, really excited for the first time shortly. I don't know when this is going to air, but very shortly it's going to be for free. You can follow along for free on CompTrain. On there, we give daily mindset minutes where I talk to you every single day about something to focus on today, give you something to do to workout wise. There's a whole university you can dive into in terms of learning about health and nutrition and recovery and habits, chasing excellence. So there's that's coming out shortly. So maybe it's out now. I don't know when we're listening, but really excited about that coming down the pipeline. And that's definitely the place that I would point people towards.
Awesome, man. Well, I know I will be definitely doing that. And I'm sure that the Creature of Habit listener is going to take you up on that offer as well. Dude, you're a legend. I really appreciate you taking the time. This was awesome. And I'm gonna get my ass up to CrossFit New England and set up some shop and throw some protein oatmeal at your athletes.
I love it. They'll love it too. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, brother.